Welcome to the Chase Podcast. Dr. Ron Charles is a renowned archaeologist, author, historian, speaker, missionary, and is known as the Christian Indiana Jones. Visit cubitfoundation.org for Dr. Ron's books and information about this global ministry.
So we're going to look at verse number 1 of John, the 11th chapter. I'll be reading out of King James. I don't care what y'all read out of, as long as it's not the Quran. All right. Now, a certain man was sick. Lazarus was 33 years old at this time. His name was Lazarus of Bethany, the town of Mary and her sister Martha. Martha was 14 years old. Mary was 16 years old. And it was that Mary which anointed the Lord with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was sick. Therefore his sisters sent unto him, saying, Lord, behold, he whom thou lovest is sick. And when Jesus heard that, he said, This sickness is not unto death, but of the glory of God, that the Son of God might be glorified thereby. Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus, and when he heard thereof, therefore that he was sick, he abode, or he stayed 2 days. Now this is Jesus. He stayed 2 days still in the same place where he was. Now let's jump down to verse 11. These things said he, and after that he said unto them, meaning he said to his disciples, Our friend Lazarus sleepeth, but I go, that I may awake him out of sleep. Then said his disciples, Lord, if he sleep, he shall do well. Howbeit Jesus spoke of his death. But they thought that he had spoken of taking rest and sleep. And then Jesus said unto them plainly, so that they wouldn't mistake, Lazarus is dead. And I am glad for your sake that I was not there, to the intent you may believe. Nevertheless, let us go unto him. This was one of the greatest miracles of Jesus' life, or his ministry, which you'll find out. Now, let's go back in about 30 years before this, in about the year 60 BC. Sulla was dictator of the Republic of Rome, or the Roman Republic at this time. He absolutely hated Jews with a passion. And he made a proclamation that he was going to exterminate all Jews and kill them all. Now back another 300 years before this, almost 400, Cyrus the Great of Persia made a decree that allowed the Jews who were under his rule in Persia to return, to leave if they wanted to. So about a third of the Jews stayed there in Persia, and about a third more returned to their home their ancestry home in what is now Israel, and that's where the story of Nehemiah and Ezra and those guys come in. And then another third, at this time, Persia controlled Egypt. So another third of those folks moved to Egypt, and Cyrus the Great gave them an island in the middle of the Nile River down near what is now Aswan today. It's called Elephantine, or the island of Elephantine. And so Cyrus gave that to the Jews, and they could live there, and they did. A number of them went down there, probably as many as 20 to 30,000, and set up their colony there, the Jewish colony, and they even had a temple that was built there. And but as is the case many times, the Jews maintained their own rituals, the temple rituals and the rituals established by Moses and the Levites and so forth. They accomplished all of those, but they also began to bring in some of the Egyptian rituals and celebrations also. It's kind of like here in America, we have Jews celebrate Hanukkah and Christmas. And so that type of thing was happening there. They ended up not only celebrating the Jewish rituals, but also celebrating the Egyptian rituals. And then after a while, you really couldn't tell the difference between the Jews and the Egyptians, because they were all pretty much the same. And just one statement, and then we'll elaborate on it a little later. One of those rituals that they picked up from the Egyptians was burial. Now the a typical Jew buried within 24 hours. But these Jews that were in Egypt, they developed the Egyptian type of burial with the mummy type things. And so Sulla declared war on the Jews. He said, I'm going to exterminate them, and I'm going to begin with Elephantine. I'm going to send my troops down there and wipe out every Jew that's down there. And Mark Antony was in control of what, at that time, what is now Israel, that was under his jurisdiction. Mark Antony's grandfather was a Jew, and he appealed to Mark Antony to see what he could do. And so Mark Antony appealed to dictator Sulla and said, give them to me. Give me the Jews. Rather than destroying the Jews in Egypt, just give them to me. And he did. He signed them over to him, and he washed his hands of the Jews. And Mark Antony then took them and displaced them into an area that we now call the Mount of Olives. All right, here's a city of, at that time, the city of Jerusalem. This is the Kidron Valley here. Mount of Olives is over here. Garden of Gethsemane was approximately right here. And on the southeast side of the Mount of Olives, and this is the mount, on the northeast side there was there's kind of a flat area, and it went down into the valley. Mark Antony gave that area to the Egyptian Jews, and they built a town there, and they called it Bethany. And in order to live in Bethany, you had to be an Egyptian Jew or ancestry of Egyptian Jew. And if you owned property there, then it's pretty much guaranteed that you were an Egyptian Jew. Now we know that that the name Lazarus, as well as the name Mary and Martha, were all their Egyptian names, and so we know that the family of Lazarus and Mary and Martha, because they owned property there in Bethany, they were Egyptian Jews. You get two? No, I got one. Okay, we have the Jordan River. And the Jordan River is that color. And the second most polluted source of water in the world. And you have Jerusalem here. And you had Bethlehem would be down in this area. You have Jericho up about right there. And then over here you had Perea, this entire area. And this was also called Judea east of Jordan. And so in this particular area right in here was the most populated of that area. And Jesus was over here ministering in this area. Now, the distance here in Bethany would be right there, where Lazarus died. The distance would be at least, if you were riding an animal, it would be about 1 day's ride. If you were walking, it would be further. But we're assuming it was probably a 1 day's ride by an animal. And Mary and Martha, when Lazarus got sick, they sent their messenger and they said, "Go find Jesus." And he's ministering over in Perea, and we know it's going to take a day to get there and a day to get back. Maybe he'll survive, but we know that Jesus will come. Now, in our lives, we as believers in Jesus, when your family gets sick, who's the first one you call on? Jesus, right? Is there any doubt in your mind that he'll show up? No. He told us that anything you ask in my name, that will I do, that the Father may be glorified in the Son. I'm with you always, even to the end of the age, or end of the world. So there's no doubt in our mind that when we go to him in prayer for the needs, whether it be physical or whatever it may be, we know that Jesus hears us, and we know that he's on his way. We know that. Well, they knew the same thing. Lazarus was probably one of the best friends Jesus had in the region. Even though he was an Egyptian Jew, Jesus was friends of many that were not Orthodox Jewish. And so there was no doubt whatsoever, none in their mind, that when they found Jesus, when the messenger found Jesus, with the message that you need to come back because your friend, the one that you love, Lazarus, he's very sick, and sick unto death. And so they knew that Jesus would just be there within a matter of a day or so. They knew it. Jesus heard the news, received the messenger, and then Jesus says, okay, go on back and tell them that this sickness is not unto death, but that God would be glorified. But when Jesus talked to his disciples after the messenger had left to go back, took him a day to get back, Jesus told his disciples, Lazarus is dead. Jesus knew that he was dead. He admitted he was dead. Lazarus died the very day that the messenger left. That day, Lazarus died. Jesus knew that he died, but he sent the message back, this sickness is not unto death. The messenger got back to Mary and Martha. I have good news for you. This death, or this sickness is not unto death. Praise God. And they says, where is Jesus? Well, he didn't come with us. He just sent the word back. Why didn't you bring Jesus back? If he's here, then he can heal. Where is he? Well, he didn't come back with us. But the message he gave is, it will suffice till he gets here. This sickness is not unto death. They said, he died the day you left. Now, where's Jesus? We don't know. He didn't come. When did he say he was going to come? No, he didn't. Our brother is dead. Now, where is Jesus? Who can make a difference? Jesus stayed 2 more days before he even began to come back. When he arrived, Martha met him first. He said, Lord, if you'd only been here, if you would have only been here, you would have made a difference. But now it's too late. The Egyptian Jews had a specific ritual of burial. The first day of death, the body's cut open. And this is Egyptian Jews. The Jews would never do that in Judea, but the Egyptian Jews did. They cut the body open. They drained the blood in the body. They removed the heart. They removed the brain. They removed the tongue and the eyes and the lungs. And then they pumped back into the body to go in through the veins and the arteries a kind of embalming fluid type stuff made out of vinegar, honey, wine, and salt. And that was pumped into the cavities of where these organs once were and in the veins and so forth. And then the body sewed back up. And these body parts are placed in a pottery jar. And in this pottery jar is the same type of fluid, the same embalming fluid. And then that pottery jar is sealed. And so, and then the body is sewed up, and then it's coated with different types of rosins and gums and that type of thing. And then they have a linen that wraps the body. And with each layer of the linen, then they have another layer of rosin and that type of thing. And then they wrap it again and wrap it again and wrap it again. Now, Cyrilius is the court historian and court representative of Pontius Pilate, and he wrote a history of the Jewish people at the time of Rome. And he was there as an eyewitness. I'll talk more about him later. And he tells us that in Lazarus' case, he received 18 layers of linen around his body. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine 18 layers? You had a body that was this big, now it's this big. And that's on the first day. And on that first day, the immediate family comes and give their condolences and so forth. The second day, the extended family, cousins and in-laws and that type of thing, they come. The third day is people from out of town and the area's friends and acquaintances. They come and give their condolences. Then on day 4, this is the very important day. The Egyptian Jews believed that on day 4, which is true, the body begins to decay. And that is absolute truth. And when the body begins to decay, that is a sign that death is absolute. God has the ability to raise anyone from death for 3 days. But once the body begins to decay, even God himself cannot bring anyone back to life. On day 4, the body is moved to the tomb. If you get a chance to go to Israel even today, you can go to the Lazarus tomb and you can be amazed. I'm gonna draw you a picture of the tomb in plan, looking down on it. You have one chamber up here. And in that chamber is about a 7 feet by 7 feet. And then on the east side, there's a little stoop, a little shelf. And then your opening is right here. Your opening would be on the south side. And then from that opening, you would roll a large stone in front of that opening and seal it. And when it's sealed, then the Roman official that's there put a Roman stamp on it saying, okay, you're officially dead and buried now. Now, there's a bottom chamber that's below ground. It's about 8 feet below ground. And that one is about a 12 foot by 12 foot. And then it's connected by stairs. Got a landing here. And those stairs, there are 40 of them. And those 40 steps indicate the 40 years of wandering in the wilderness. Okay? Now we're going to look at this direction. Okay, you have the top chamber. And then on this stoop is where the pottery jar was placed with all of the organs in it. And then you have the bottom chamber. And then you had, that is connected with the stairs and so forth, again down there. And then it turns and then again. And on that bottom chamber is the sarcophagus. And the sarcophagus is about 7 feet long, and it's about 4 or 5 feet wide, and it stands about as high as this table. And then on the sarcophagus, there's a stone lid that is placed on it. That stone lid is about 3 or 4 inches deep, and it's solid rock. And so the body is then placed in this sarcophagus, and the stone placed on top. On day number 4, Lazarus' body went into the sarcophagus. His organs were then placed on the upper chamber. By now, the word got out that Lazarus is now totally, completely, ultimately dead. And even God himself cannot make a difference. The next day, day 5, that's the funeral, the official funeral. And that's the day Jesus shows up. I know all of us have been in this situation. Lord, I needed you at 8 o'clock this morning, not at 8 o'clock tonight. I don't need you now, it's done. It's over with. It's destroyed. I needed you when I needed you. I needed you when I called on you. Why didn't you show then? I do appreciate you being with me now, but it's only 4 days too late. Yeah, Lord, I still love you. I still trust you, but I'm just so disappointed. Why didn't you come when I needed you the most? Martha says, Lord, if you'd only been here. And he tells Martha, we think it's Martha. He was talking to Martha when he said it. Roll away the stone. But Lord, it's day 5. He stinks now. His body is decayed. It's too late now. Jesus said, roll away the stone. That stone weighs about 290 pounds. How many of you women can lift something like that? Nobody's hand. And Jesus didn't offer to help her. We don't know how she did it or who helped her. But we do know that Jesus did not lift a finger to help her do it. But however way the stone was rolled away, it was. And then Jesus stood in the opening. And let's read it. Jesus said, verse number 39, Jesus said, take away the stone. And they took away the stone and from the place where the dead was laid. And Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, Father, I thank thee that thou hast heard me. And I knew that thou hearest me always. But because of the people which stand by, I said it, that they may believe that thou hast sent me. And when he had thus spoken, he cried with a loud voice, Lazarus, come forth. Now, the very next verse, we read this. The next thing we see. And he that was dead came forth, bound hand and foot with the grave clothes, and his face was bound with a napkin, a separate napkin. Okay, so Jesus stands in the opening, up there at the top, this top chamber. Jesus stands right there, and he screams in a loud voice, Lazarus, come forth. 3,000 people were there as eyewitnesses to this. And then Jesus waits. And the next thing we see in the Word of God is that Lazarus is in the top chamber, still has his grave clothes on, alive. How did he get there? Now, Jesus is not the type of person that wiggles his nose and snap, things go from here to here. They run the natural course. Lazarus is down here. He wasn't alive when they put him down there. He was dead. He had no idea, basically, how to get out of there. Now, when Jesus made him come alive, Jesus gave him new blood. He gave him a new brain, new lungs, a new heart, new eyes, all new stuff. But he's still down here. Now, with 18 layers of linen on you, you can't bend your knees. You can't use your hands. How did he get out of the box? First of all, you got to get the stone cover off. And then once you can possibly roll out of this thing that is sitting this high above the ground, then once you get out, he still had the covering on his face. How did he know where he was? How did he know where the stairs were? And how do you get up the stairs? I mean, can you imagine? Maybe jumping a couple of steps, rolling back down. Cyrilius tells us that Jesus stood and waited for 3 hours and 40 minutes without saying another word. He only called Lazarus one time. Never talked to him again after that. And then for the next 3 hours plus, almost 4, Jesus didn't say another word, didn't do another thing, and he waited. Can you imagine if you were there as an eyewitness? Saying, Jesus, I really believed in you, but even this is too far. Even this is too far for you. Just keep your mouth shut. Why did you do this? Others said, they were riding the fence. Well, this puts me over the top. I don't need to follow a person who's insane, who screams at a tomb. I've been waiting now for 2 hours. Why don't someone do something about this? Take this man away. Then the Pharisees, perhaps, who were there, they said, we have him now. We don't care if he dies or goes into a mental institution. We get rid of him. But there were those who decided to stay till the end, however long that would be. Sir Elias tells us less than 300 people remained when Lazarus showed up. Over 2,700 had left. They did not see the end result of Jesus showing up. But then when Lazarus showed up, Jesus did absolutely nothing about taking the bandages off, taking the linens off. He turned to the girls, to the friends, to the associates, and he says, you loose him.
Hi, I'm Dr. Ron Charles of the Cubit Foundation. We've been in Middle East for going on 30 years. And I would love to come to your church or your meeting to let you know what's happening in reality in the Middle East. And we'd love to come there and let you know what's happening, what the Lord's doing in that part of the world. So if you can contact us at thecubitfoundation.org, then we could come to your place. If you would like to find out more about us, then go to www.cubitfoundation.org. Thank you.
The Chase with Dr. Ron Charles is sponsored by supporters of the Cubit Foundation. Visit cubitfoundation.org for Dr. Ron's books and discover how you can support this global ministry.